I'm Philip Clarke, Farmers Weekly's economics editor, and I'm here to talk about the world beef market. Beef producers in the UK have been enjoying a period of relatively firm prices for their finished cattle this year, with values still holding up at about 275 pence a kilo. That's 25% up on year-ago levels, mainly due to the fundamentals of supply and demand. But what is going on further afield? And what is it likely to mean for British producers as 2009 approaches? Overall, the signs are rather good. In Europe, for example, the supply of beef cattle looks set to continue its downward trend, with the EU Commission forecasting another 1% drop to less than 8 million tonnes. This is mainly due to the fact that, unlike in the UK, continental abattoirs source about 2/3 of their beef from the dairy herd, and in response to falling milk prices and a lack of new blood, the dairy herd is shrinking. Suckler cow numbers have been more stable on the continent, mainly due to the continuation of coupled supports in countries like Spain and France. Nevertheless, Brussels is predicting that the EU's overall trade deficit will grow from about 500,000 tonnes this year to 600,000 tonnes in 2010. Of course, that will increase our dependency on imports, and thoughts immediately turn to Brazil. To a great extent, the EU and UK have been protected from Brazilian beef this year due to the restrictions imposed by Brussels in response to foot and mouth concerns. This brought shipments to a halt in the early part of the year, and while the number of farms approved for export is slowly starting to climb, supplies are still much reduced. What will happen next year remains to be seen, though with more farms coming on stream, the number of breeding cattle now growing again, and the Brazilian real getting weaker, the prospects of stiffer competition from Brazil in 2009 is a distinct possibility. The other main player in South America is Argentina, but its supplies to the world market have dropped 25% this year as the government in Buenos Aires has imposed export quotas and taxes in an effort to keep more product at home. With the Argentinians chomping their way through an impressive 70 kilograms of beef per person per year, and with the government desperate to keep a lid on inflation, there is little prospect of Argentina returning as a major player on the world beef market anytime soon. Staying in the Southern Hemisphere, Australia is the other major exporter, ranking number 2 after Brazil. Like Brazil, Australia is currently seeing a period of currency weakness, with the Aussie dollar coming under pressure. This is boosting its export competitiveness. But Australia has also seen a tightening of its beef supply, with feedlots operating at well below capacity following several years of intense drought. Increasing feed costs have also hit supplies. Exports, which generally are targeted at Japan, South Korea and the USA, are expected to contract in 2009 by 3% according to recent figures from the US Department of Agriculture. And what of the USA? Beef production in the States tends to be cyclical, and if anything, production should be on the way up. But again, the combination of higher feed prices, drought in certain key states, and the contraction in the dairy herd have kept a lid on output. Demand for beef remains strong, and as such, the USA remains a net importer of beef, especially live cattle from Canada and chilled product from Australia. Despite this, weekly slaughterings are now climbing, and the USDA is forecasting strong export growth next year, especially as Japan and South Korea open up again following BSE issues with the USA. Some analysts believe the USA could become a net exporter of beef again by 2010, but with a strong US dollar and the impact of the global financial crisis on demand, this could be optimistic. Overall then, the prospect for the world beef market is pretty favourable, with supplies likely to remain tight well into next year. Question marks remain on the demand side. Already, there are signs that the financial crisis is hitting consumers in the pocket, and demand is weakening in some of the emerging markets. But it will bounce back, especially as the world population continues to expand and people in emerging economies become more affluent, demanding a more Western-style diet. Of course, there will be problems along the way: fluctuating feed costs, changing weather patterns, unforeseen disease outbreaks, and maybe even a return of the world trade talks. But overall, the prospects for the global beef market are positive, and that has to be good news for British livestock farmers.